Fix your hair. Fix me.
Okay. Thank you guys for joining. Today is the last lecture. Woo! And this is New Testament 103. So last time we did the Catholic Epistles, and we went over all those epistles at high level. And today we're covering Revelations. Hopefully you guys had the chance to read Revelations. Yes, oh nice. Okay, that's good. Hopefully you had a chance, because this one is very unique. And so let's go ahead and get started. Let's focus, please. Let's focus. No phones, and let's just focus together. So again, just to recall what we've gone over, by now we have finished. You guys should have read everything in the New Testament, and it kind of lines up perfect with the Great Lent. It was not intentional to be done this way at all, but by now you should have read everything in the New Testament. And if you did the homework, you would have read Revelations as well, so you would have finished the entire New Testament, and hopefully you guys got something out of it. But again, just to recap real quick, the Gospels were focused on the good news at a high level. You guys remember when we looked at this in lecture 1? And it was, I think it was a little bit blurry. Now I hope this can be a little bit more, where you see more about each of the personalities, a little bit more about the evidence, and understand a little bit difference between each of them, right? We said the Gospels are the good news, and then the Acts, which was the second volume to Gospel of Luke, but that one is the early church, right? We said that's the early church, and then we have the letters. This should say Paul as well. That's the Hebrews one. Some people say it's unnamed, but this one is written to Paul. But these letters, or the epistles, they are basically written sermons, right, to the church. And so we have good news, we have early church, and we have written letters and sermons. And then we come into Revelations. One of the most complicated readings, or some people try to avoid it, and some people love reading it. It depends on you, but some people just don't want to read it because they understand absolutely nothing. And some people want to read it and get into it. Especially when someone dies or something like this, people will go and read Revelations. And we're going to talk a little bit about it. But Revelations really, really is unique. And the reason why it's the most unique in the New Testament, we're going to talk about that here. But this is truly unique because this is a prophecy. Okay? This is the only prophecy in the New Testament. If we look in the Old Testament, we have so many prophecies. We have Isaiah, Ezekiel. We have so many prophecies that we can list and name. But in the New Testament, there's only one prophecy, and that's in Revelation. Welcome. And Revelation was written by who? We talked about it before.
John.
Saint John. Okay. And here in Revelations, Saint John, you will see that he says, "And I saw, and I saw." He says it multiple times. Please leave the elephant alone. So when he says, "And I saw this, and I saw this," this means it's a collection of prophecies that he saw. Okay? This is written around 95 AD, again in the island when Saint John, please no phones. This was written when he was in exile in the island called Patmos. And again, Saint John was the last disciple that was left. Okay, he was the last one that was left. All of the disciples were dead by 70 AD. Okay, roughly 70 AD, they were all martyred. And Saint John was the only one that was left. Okay, he was the last man standing, basically. And he wrote his gospel. He wrote the 3 letters that we talked about, right? Here. And he wrote Revelations. Okay? And in Revelation, John, and this is going to get a little bit complicated, so I need you guys to focus with me, okay? I'm going to try to digest a lot of the information for you, and we're going to focus on one of my favorite chapters in Revelations. So I'm going to try to, and we're not even going to go over the whole thing. We're going to go, depending on how time allows us. We're already a little bit behind because it's 7:10. But we are going to go over Revelations chapter 13 as much as we can finish from it. But in Revelations, John, he saw a vision of God. And that's in chapter 1. Okay? So chapter 1 focuses on the glory of God. And God tells him to write what he sees. And at the end of every chapter, he tells him, don't add or subtract. So if you read the chapters and pay attention, when you read the homework, God tells him, don't add and don't subtract anything from what you see. Okay? And he tells him to write what was and what will be. Okay? This is critical. This is why I'm saying he told him, write what was and what will be. The reason why I'm saying this is because Revelation starts from when John was alive. So the book, the chapter 2 and 3 are focused on the problems that John was living in. Okay, so chapter 1 is the throne of God. Chapter 2 and 3 is the problems that the early church was going through. So if you read chapter 2 and 3, it's the current problems. Okay? And then chapter 4 through chapter 20, the fathers call those chapters the church is leaving earth and it's on its way to heaven. And then from chapter 21 to 24, the church is in heaven. Okay? So 1 is the glory of God, 2 and 3 is what it was, or with John. 4 to 20 is the church going from earth to heaven, and 21 to 24, the church is in heaven. Okay? And 21 to 24 is very, joyful chapters. But in the middle, 4 to 20, we're going to talk about chapter 13, and you guys are going to sense what's in there. So, again, as we said, Revelation is the only prophecy in the New Testament. No texting, please. Thank you. Okay, so to truly visualize, guys. I want you guys to truly visualize what's happening here. So we had the Old Testament, and then we have the New Testament. Christ was born, and there's people around Christ, and there was the prophecy of who, for example, when Christ was alive. What were the prophecies in the Old Testament that were available to people? Isaiah, Ezekiel, right? These prophecies were available for people to read, and they were reading them in the synagogues. And Christ was right there. So there was misinterpretations by some people, and that's why they didn't follow Christ. Okay? And there were people that understood what was in the book of Isaiah and Ezekiel and all the prophecies, and they started following Christ, right? Same thing for Revelations. This is the prophecy for us. So you remember how I said in the old times, people were around Jesus, and they saw this and this, and they saw Christ, and some understood, and some didn't understand. The ones that understood followed him. The ones that didn't understand, obviously did not follow him. Same thing for Revelations. Revelations tells you what's going to happen until the second coming, until everything is done, till everything is over. Okay? So, the point is you can misinterpret Revelations. No one can actually understand Revelations. Okay? No one alive right now can actually explain what will happen. For example, there's Jehovah's Witnesses, there's all kinds of people. If I open Google and show you how many people predicted when the world will end, based on what it says in Revelations, they're all incorrect. I'm sure you guys remember the movie 2012, End of the World, right? Or was it 2012 or 2014? One of those. 2012. Yeah. That was based on maybe few hundred people that are totally educated and know exactly what they're talking about, and they've made predictions before on a lot of things, and they came out wrong. Because there's a verse that says no one will know the hour when the Son of Man is coming. So no one, if anyone is trying to use this book to predict when life will end, or when the future will happen, or when this will happen, they're gonna absolutely fail. And we've seen it. And this discredits a lot of people when they try to do that. So that's why we, as Orthodox and Copts, we don't say that we know when this will happen, or we know when this will end. Or we can take bits and pieces. There's a lot of symbolisms that we're gonna go over, and these symbolisms mean different things. And we're gonna see, you guys are gonna see the name Michael, Archangel Michael, is in Revelations, right? And it talks about how Michael defeats the dragon. Who's the dragon? It literally tells you it's the devil. So there's very clear things that we're gonna go look over here and talk about. So basically, the point of what I'm saying is, with the misinterpretation or understanding, is that when Christ comes and second coming happens and all that is done, when we read Revelations again, when we're up in heaven, you're gonna be like, okay, yep, that makes sense, yep, that makes sense, and it's gonna click then. But no one can say, I knew all of this. Listen to any bishop the Pope himself, even Pope Shenouda, Abuna Dawood Lami, everybody says that you cannot predict things from revelations. Okay? Okay, so people do love to read the revelations though. Why? Why do some people love to read it? We know the people that don't like to read it are because they're saying I can't understand it. But there are some people that love to read it. Why?
Because there's a lot to understand. There's a lot to like figure out.
Yeah.
And it's like you're reading it, and like you just said, nobody's actually completely understood the whole book.
Yeah.
So there's always more to figure out. And there's always more to learn from the book.
Very good. Anybody else? Any other thoughts? Anyone? Go ahead, Noel.
Or like you get a lot of people, a lot of theorists, like people who like to make theories.
Okay.
Like in Revelation.
Okay.
So this is going to happen. So
Yep.
they look
Okay.
at the current events going on in the world, saying, "Oh, you know what? The Bible said this. Maybe the intent."
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Any other thoughts?
Keeps them like ready for eternity, and like they like to read it because that's where they're gonna be.
Okay.
Forever, you know, like,
Very good. Okay. All of you guys give some really good stuff. And I just want to mention that, you know, one of the big reasons why people, even though they don't understand it, they still read it is because it gives them joy. And here's why it gives them joy. Because there's very clear verses that say that God will win, no matter what. Okay? At the end of it, God will basically, no matter what, do justice for everybody. So if there is injustice, if there's evil, if there's bad, if there's bullies, if whatever it is, everyone is gonna get served through justice. Okay? And this gives God's people joy. Because look at remember the 21 martyrs. If you guys remember, we were all alive during that time. There were so many videos on Facebook and all the stuff on Instagram. We're saying, why did this happen to them? Why is this happening? But again, this is something that's God's. It's not something that we say, you know, that this is not okay, or, you know, we don't say it like that, right? So we know that at the end of times, God will serve justice for everybody. Okay, that's one. The other one is no matter how many there are of antichrists that people keep talking about, and all these things, we know that we're gonna meet the King, which is Christ, right? So imagine this. Imagine you've been studying for a long time, and then you take the exam, and then you get a really good grade, and then the professor comes and gives you your grade and shows you that you got a perfect score or that you passed. You get really happy because everything that you did and you worked for that exam shows, right? And that's exactly what will basically happen is you're focused on Christ, you go to church, you read your Bible, you're trying as much as you can to get to know God. There was a bishop that mentioned this example before. He said, even if you don't understand what you're reading, or you have no idea what you're reading, or when you're in liturgy you're confused or any of this, imagine, and again, this is not meant in any bad way, but imagine if you have a dog, and the dog comes, and all they do is, whoa, 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 they bark at you, right? They bark at you nonstop, but what do? You love them, right? You love them. They come and lick you and hug you whenever you show up, right? This is love. They love you. Imagine that we are those dogs, and we are, every time we go to church, we may not know what we're doing, we may not be communicating the same thing, we may not be understanding, but we're barking, we're happy, we're trying to show God that we love Him because He loves us too, right? So it's the similar feeling, basically, that you will meet the King, God, who you've been waiting for, who you've been doing all this hard work for. Okay? And a lot of people, when it comes to death in their family, they actually go and read Revelation, because it shows them how at the end we're all going to be connected and we're all going to eventually end up in that same place. So it gives them that hope, that comfort. So a lot of people will read it actually when there's a death in the family. Okay, one thing before I move on to the next slide is, in any prophecy, whether it's Isaiah or Ezekiel or John or anyone else, you guys will notice that they mention their name. Okay? And we're going to talk about how many times John mentions his name in, this is the only book he mentions his name in. 4 times. He mentions his name 4 times. And he mentions that, and we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. My files are on the wrong. Okay, so so this is chapter 1, guys. So what's up?
Someone had a question.
Huh? Who had it?
No.
Can we
Yeah.
keep it until the end? Sorry, just so for the sake of time. So here I'm showing you guys chapter 1 from the book of Revelations, and this is chapter 6 from the book of Isaiah. Sorry if you can't see it, but the point that I want to show you here is that this was written over 1,000 years ago when Isaiah was writing this prophecy. It matches with the one that John wrote in Revelations. This tells you that they both saw the same thing. This is incredible in itself. You can look at the words in here, the 7 lampstands, one like God, clothed his head and hair are like white wool, the first and the last, he who lives and was dead and alive forevermore. And here you see a throne high, lifted up, robe filled in the temple, seraphim, 6 wings, 2 covered the face. We're going to see here in the next slide how they talk about also, this is also John and this is Ezekiel. So you're going to see here, this is when John saw a vision, and there was a great cloud with raging fire, brightness, radiating amber, midst fire, 4 living creatures. He saw 4 faces, 4 wings, and their legs were straight, and the sole of the cow's feet, they sparkled like burnished bronze, and the hands of the men were under their wings with 4 sides, and each of the 4 had 4 faces and wings, and their wings touched one another. Here, let's look at Ezekiel. Again, this is a prophecy, right? This is a prophecy from Ezekiel. He talks about same thing, okay, from Ezekiel. Each had the face of a man. Each of the 4 had the face of a lion, ox, eagle, right? We talked about these 4. These are the 4 gospels, right? So this is Ezekiel 1,000 years ago. This is John writing 1,000 years after. 3 different people saw the same exact thing. And there's more into it, but I don't want to go in too much detail. But this is the beauty of describing heaven, right? They all saw similar, they saw the same heaven, but they each described it in their own way. And this is the beauty of it. Can we save the questions till the end, if that's okay? And so just keep in mind that all of these prophecies are trying to simplify something. They're trying to simplify something for people to understand, but it's almost hard to describe. Does that make sense? Like even St. Paul himself, in his letters, he says that it's something that no mouth can speak, like you can't express it. Even though St. Paul is one of the most proficient in explaining and teaching, he said that this is something that's almost please guys. He says this is something that's inexplainable, right? Okay, let's keep moving forward. All right. So again, we said the writer is Saint John the Beloved. He wrote it when he was in exile, 25 years from Asia Minor, which is the modern days now is Turkey, and that's written between 95 and 96 AD. He addressed it basically to the 7 churches. We're going to talk about the 7 churches here. And then, as I said, he mentions his name 4 times. And he mentions his name specifically because anyone that speaks about a prophecy, they have to say their name in order for people to trust them. Okay? So he had to say his name few times every time he saw something, just for the people to know who's the author who's revealing these predictions. Okay? If you go look in the Gospel of John or in 1st, 2nd, 3rd of his epistles, he doesn't mention his name, and that's out of humility. And then if you look even in chapter 1 in Revelations 1, he calls himself Christ's servant. He says, and your brother and companion in tribulations and in the kingdom and patience of Jesus Christ. So he says this basically that he, in a humble way, he is mentioning himself, but then he mentions his name 4 times. Okay? What does the word revelation mean in Greek?
To unveil.
Yeah, I think we can see it.
It's on there.
Yeah, but what okay, what is it?
Revelation. Reveal.
Apocalypse. Apocalypse. But apocalypse means to unveil, to uncover, revealing something. So I'm going to read a statement and I want you guys to pay attention to this. This is from one of the fathers. They say the book of Revelations is the removal of the veil to discover the Lord who worked for our salvation and is still working and will still work in the future, presenting himself to us as a safe royal route. With this, he sanctifies history, the past, the present, and the future, to cross with us what's above history, to a certain eternity and the glories he prepares for us himself. Okay? So as I said, Revelations is really critical because it talks about the past, the present, and the future. Talks literally, it covers everything. Okay? And as we look through this book, we're gonna see how it's very active. It's a very active book. Like John is not by himself. John, he'll mention send of the sea. Send of the sea. We've seen that before in one of the other books in the New Testament, where send of the sea means the people. That means there's a lot of people there. So he talks about the sand of the sea. Then he starts crying. There's a moment where he starts crying, and an angel comes and tells him, "Don't cry, it will be okay." And then he goes. It's a very active prophecy. And then he goes and talks to one of the 24 priests. Okay, and then they have a conversation back and forth, and this shows you that heaven is really like a family, and everybody is communing with one another. Okay, let's keep moving forward. So again, what does the title mean? It starts with no problem. The first verse in the book of Revelation, it says the revelation of Jesus Christ. So what did we say revelation means? Apocalypse. Unveiling, uncovering, or revealing something. Okay? But then it says the revelation of Jesus Christ. Why is it saying Jesus Christ? Why is it not saying the Father? Why is it not saying the Holy Spirit? Why is it saying of Jesus Christ?
Because that's who he witnessed.
Huh?
That's who he witnessed. And plus they're all one.
Okay, you're talking about the Trinity of the gods, yes. But I'm asking something specific. He says about Jesus Christ, he says the revelation of Jesus Christ. Can anyone take any other guesses or share? Go ahead, Yacoub.
I mean, I just another one. Was it because he promised that he would come back? Like before?
I'll just, you're getting there. It's basically saying that everything converges into Christ and it belongs to him, right? So we have the Old Testament, which are prophecies about Christ that's coming, right? And then in the New Testament, we see Christ fulfilling the Old Testament. And then we get the revelations, which connects the Old. It's basically, the revelations is where the Old and the New Testament are fulfilled. Okay? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So you have the Old Testament. It talks about the prophecy of Christ. A man will be born unto a virgin, right? And then we get the New Testament. The man is born from the virgin. And then we get the revelation. And it starts talking about Jesus Christ and him in his glory. It says he died, he was born, died, and lived forevermore. And we saw all of that between the Old and the New Testament. So that's why it says the revelation of Jesus Christ. Because we're converging everything to Christ and that everything belongs to him. Does that make sense? You guys with me? Okay. So I'm going to read another quote from the Fathers that says the book of Revelation is the unveiling of the future, to see it in the hands of the Lord, who controls the history and is the master of it. He is a mighty Father, planning our victory, working with us and for us as to carry the kingdom of joy and light instead of the kingdom of darkness. So what's the importance of this book? Why is this the last book and why is this so important? I kind of gave away a lot of the answers, but I want you guys to tell me, why do you think this book is really important?
It shows us the future.
Okay.
It shows what's going to happen.
Very good. What else? That's good. What else?
Prophecy.
Prophecy. It's the only prophecy in the New Testament, yes. What else?
For our current, I mean, the history, the past, the present.
The present and the future. Very good. Anything else that you guys can think of? Anybody else?
It talks us about what heaven's going to be like whenever we get it.
Okay, yes, it talks about heaven. Okay, I'm gonna share one thing that I want to clarify for you guys. The Bible starts with Genesis, right? And in Genesis, what happens?
God created earth.
God created everything in the first few days, and then he created man. Man did what?
Sin.
Sinned. And what happened when the man sinned?
Fail.
The view was changed, right? Quickly, the view was changed. Remember the chairs that we did? The view was changed. The picture got disfigured, right? Everything got disfigured. Man became basically, man came out of paradise, right? He was dismissed out of paradise. He was humiliated. And then he carried this crime of sin on his shoulders, right? And then he hid behind a tree, right? Him and Eve, they hid. They said they were naked. They were afraid of meeting God, right? And they were basically about to face justice, right? So what happens after that?
They fell.
They got kicked out of, yes, the paradise. And then after all this stuff, people kept sinning. And then what happened? Who had to come?
Christ.
Okay, so Christ didn't leave man behind in their sin. He didn't leave that figure distorted for too long. God or Christ had to come, right? And then what?
And he died for our sins.
And he died for our sins, he resurrected, and then while in the midst of all this, he was also humiliated by people, and all this stuff happened, right? And he accepted all that until he resurrected, and then this is where Revelation comes. And I'm going to read this to you guys word for word. That the Bible concludes with the book of Revelations, offering us a delightful picture, an open door in heaven, eternal paradise waiting for human beings, a divine Lord eager to embrace heavenly harps, wedding, and heavenly matrimony for the sake of man. Okay? So it started from, it's basically showing God's infinite love. God started loving man, he created man, man sinned, God had to come to save man for their sin, and then God glorified, basically said, man, I want you to come live with me in paradise. Do you see the cycle? You understand? Yes? Okay. So the book of Revelation is also known as God's perfect infinite love, basically, to man. Because it's a book that gives you hope, it shows you victory. It's also a book for the liturgy, okay? So you know how we say agios in the liturgy? That's from Revelations. We're Holy Week, we're about to say what? Soktati Gom. That's from Revelations. Okay? Thine is the power, the glory. All that is from Revelations. Actually, after, during Holy Week, there's a day, it's called what? That reflects the book of Revelations. What's it called? Everyone should know this, huh?
Bright Saturday?
Yes, Bright Saturday. What is it also called? Apocalypse Night. Yes, very good. Okay, so this is truly the night where the church tries to reenact the entire book of Revelations. Okay, and it gets really creative. So after we bury Christ, we go to church, right? Dressed in white, holding candles. You go around the church. You start reading Revelations. That night we read the entire book of Revelations too, right? And then we sing it. So we sing it too. So for example, Abuna will say something, and then the deacons will get up and start playing the deaf really loud and they'll say what? He who has an ear, let him hear. And then it goes on, right? What the Spirit says unto the church, right? Okay. But we say this multiple times. Because, and I'm going to explain what does it mean to he who has an ear, let him hear. We're going to talk about that. But we say that quite a lot in the church. And then there's a portion,
I wish I had ears.
wow. Ouch. Okay. Moving forward. Thank you, Amanda. So there's a portion where the angel is carrying, it says he saw the angel with a censer. So Abuna gets up, gets the censer, and starts using the censer. We're reenacting everything in Revelation. That's gonna stay with me now. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you for that. That's live. Everyone will know. Okay, so the characteristics of this book, let's get back to it. Okay, how many symbols do you guys think are in the book of Revelation?
7.
We got 7. What else? No, that's different.
Oh, never mind.
7 Revelation.
Yeah, 7
Oh,
Revelation.
yeah.
He said 7. Any other guesses?
Too many to know.
Yeah, I think it's either gonna be a lot or like.
Wait,
How can you
It's a
count?
lot.
Question,
How
what
can
was
you
It's a
count?
lot.
How
It's
many
a,
symbols?
huh?
How many symbols?
It's a lot. It's over 300 symbols.
Okay.
Seven's close enough.
It's over 300. Okay? So,
There might even be symbols that you don't even realize are symbols. So it's like you can't even really
right.
know.
So that's what we're gonna talk about a little bit more. So each have some kind of definite meaning, but the symbol could mean something that cannot be expressed in a human language. Okay? And I'm done singing. I'm not gonna sing anymore.
Forever.
Yeah.
You're gonna let them sing and you hype it up.
They'll be here in the morning.
They will get
They'll be here in the morning, guys.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna be here tomorrow morning there,
They'll be
Lord.
here tomorrow. So there's also the word throne. The word throne is mentioned about 40 times in the book of Revelation. And this assures us that God opens the doors of heaven for us to ascend with him and to sit on his right side. Okay. Is everything okay? Okay, let's keep moving forward, guys. So as I wanna clarify, I wanna make sure that everybody understands something that I just said. In the book of Revelations, God's word is completed. This is when God's word is completed and his divine promises. Okay? So the New Testament and the Old Testament are fulfilled. We got that? The Old Testament and New Testament is fulfilled. We also talk about number 7. Number 7, right here, the 7 Revelation. 7 is mentioned, it's repeated multiple times in Revelation. There's a lot of people that say 7 is mentioned in everything because there's 7 days in a week, and that's why there has to be something for every day. There's so many 7s, and we can talk really briefly about them, but that's a very earthly perspective. It's not what we mean or what we understand. So the 7 churches, basically it's governing all the churches, and the 7 lampstands basically. So here it's presenting that every church that there is the churches and they're being illuminated basically, and they're preparing that the church is being prepared to meet God. So with the lamps, right? And then there's the 7 spirits. So some people say that the 7 spirits are the 7 archangels, okay? And some just say that this is the perfect work of the Holy Spirit. There's the 7 messages to the 7 churches. Again, this is talking more about the, how far are we on time? That every message is offered basically at an advantage and edification for the church without ignoring the personal relationship between Christ and that local church or the people. Okay, so it's governing all messages to everybody basically. And then there's the 7 lambs. There's the 7 lambs. I don't know, it's not on there, but there's the 7 lambs of burning fire. So we said the 7 lambs are for the church. What's the burning fire? It's the divine gift from God's Holy Spirit. Okay, and then there's the 7 horns. Horns refers to strength. Eyes refers to complete knowledge or complete power. There's the trumpets. The trumpets are more about the warnings. So God's warnings to the wicked people. So these are the trumpets. There's 7 trumpets if you read about them. It's basically a warning to those that are the wicked that persecute God's people.
Right.
And then there's the talking thunders, huh?
Why is it always 7? Is there
It's a
reason
complete
behind it?
number. It's the number of completion. And then there's the 7,000 slain to the earthquakes. And then there's the 7 heads and the crowns. And we're going to see that there is 7 heads and 10 crowns. And we're going to hear about a lot about the dragon. And then there's the 7 bowls. And how do you say this one? The blades? Blades. And those are basically, I can never say that word. Blade. Okay, so it's basically it's saying that the warnings don't stop at the trumpets, but there's 7 bowls and there's 7
Plagues.
that.
Yeah.
Okay, and then there's 7 mountains.
How do you say it in Arabic?
Wow.
Okay.
So let's get back into it because so this really shows you again, as we said, this shows you a very quick overview of Revelations. I was gonna go very briefly over each chapter, but I think I'm just gonna focus on chapter 13. Okay? Yeah, so let's go.
Yeah.
No, hold on.
Someoneexample.com.
Let's go.
Let's read, guys. Let's read.
We're
So
gonna-
seven is like the number of days in 2000.
So we're gonna go over.
Chapter 7.
So let's try to finish whatever we can in the next 15 minutes from chapter 13. Okay, chapter. Okay, listen. So before we get into chapter 13, because when it says here, then I stood. What happened before? If you didn't read, I'm just gonna recap chapter 12 really quick.
Then I saw happened before.
Huh? No, it says now I guess let me just refresh you guys on chapter 12 really quick. So chapter 12 here, let me just go back to it actually. So chapter 12 talks kifaya.
This is where
Enough.
Michael-
Let's
this is where
focus.
Michael-
Huh?
This is where Archangel Michael
Yeah.
blew him out.
Yes.
Yes, right
Satan
here.
thrown out of heaven. It
Right
says
here.
so. There you go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Okay, guys, let's please. We got 15 minutes. I just want to finish this. Mariam, I'm gonna move you. Okay.
That wasn't even the start.
Now please pay attention. We're reading the book of Revelations. The name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Be respectful now. So here, this chapter talks about a woman, a child, and a dragon. Okay, so let's read it real quick. Now a great sign appeared in heaven: a woman clothed with sun, with moon under her feet, on her head 12 stars. Then, being with child, she cries out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign appeared in heaven: behold, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 on his head. His tails drew a third of the star of heaven and threw them to the earth. And a dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child. As soon as it was born, she bore a male child who was to rule all the nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to heaven and his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So if we just here, then it talks about Michael and his angels fighting that dragon. So what is the dragon?
Same.
Devil.
The devil. It tells you right there. So the great dragon was cast out, that serpent of old called Satan. Okay, the devil and Satan, who deceives the whole world. He was cast to the earth, and his angels were cast with him. So just a quick brief here. Chapter 12 talks about a woman who was clothed with sun and moon under her feet and 12 stars. This refers to the church. Okay, this is the church. That woman is the church. She bears Christ. That's the baby. That's the born baby. That's Christ. And then there's a dragon that wants to devour that child. That's the devil. And then this dragon or serpent, please pay attention. This dragon or serpent gets defeated by Michael, who's an archangel, and he was called Satan. We saw it. And then, if we keep going, it says here, then I heard a loud voice. This is verse 10, right here. Then I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, now salvation and strength and the kingdom of our God and the power of his Christ has come. For the accuser of our brethren who accused them before our God day and night has been cast down. Okay, so this basically, Michael defeats Satan, okay, and then the dragon or the devil loses the battle, but he's still fighting, but he's broken. He lost the battle. If you keep reading here, it tells you that he lost the battle, but he's still trying. In verse 17, it captures it really well. And the dragon was enraged with the woman, and he went to make war with the rest of her offspring. Who's her offspring? Us. Okay. Who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Okay. So here the devil is mad at the woman. The woman is the church, and he's at war with the rest of the offspring who keep the commandments, which is us. Okay. Now I want to focus on chapter 13. So we're going to read verse by verse here, and we're going to talk about it. Okay? Then I stood. Can actually someone read verse 1, please?
Then I stood on the sand of the sea, and I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads a blasphemous name.
Okay. What did you guys get out of this? Please share.
There's a beast with a lot of heads and horns, and he has crowns, and he has a blasphemous name.
Okay.
So it's a devil. That was a devil. He was described like that in the last chapter.
I think it's more, well, I mean, I'm not gonna interpret it, but like 7 heads has to deal with the 7 different types of opponents or something like that. Like
Okay.
some type of adversary that comes in. It's not just one thing, it's multiple things together.
Okay.
But wasn't that how the
Go ahead, Mark.
Sorry, I kind of just read ahead, and I know I'm not supposed to do that, but like if you can tell, that's not supposed to be a devil, but it's something that the beast is supposed to like look appealing to us. It's supposed to be something that we want to glorify
Okay.
later on.
Very good.
It's what the earth wants to see.
Okay. So guys, this beast is the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and we're gonna read later on that this beast starts worshiping Satan, and then the people are worshiping the beast, and the beast is worshiping the dragon. So we're gonna understand here that the people are gonna start following the beast, and the beast is the one that goes to the dragon, which is the
dragon gave him the power, so that he glorifies
Well, yeah,
the
we're,
dragon.
yes, we're gonna get there. So here let's get on verse 1. It talks about the sand of the sea. Guys, let's get back. The sand of the sea here, it refers to the people, the congregation, everybody. Okay, so basically, John is saying, I stood on the sand of the sea. So he's saying he's standing in the middle of so many people. Sand of the sea. So Abraham, if you guys remember, there's a verse that says, your descendants will be like the sand of the sea. That's exactly what this is saying. Okay, go ahead.
But couldn't it also be like he's saying, I stood on the sand of the sea, like he's on the sand, and then I saw a beast rising up out of the sea. So like he's on sand, and then he sees a beast coming out of water. It couldn't also be like
That's
that.
the literal translation, and again, no one knows the exact translation. I'm collecting everything from what the fathers have said, and I'm just sharing with you. It could mean a whole lot of
Do you
things.
check Bible Hub?
Huh?
Do you check Bible Hub?
No, I check Abuna Dawood Lam'i, Pope Shenouda, Bishop Raphael, Amma Bavli. These are the ones. Those are my resources.
Because I guess that works.
Okay.
Good enough, guys.
Yeah. So here, what they're meditating on is the sand of the sea. Is that John was standing in the middle of a big congregation, or all the people, just like God told Abraham that I'm gonna make your descendants, they will be like the sand of the sea. And so here, basically, John is standing and watching between all these people, and they're watching this weird creature, and it's an enemy of the church. Okay, and everyone starts watching this 7 heads. 7 heads and 10 horns. So this beast, as we said, it refers to the Antichrist. And if you guys actually go look in the book of Daniel, let me just open it real quick.
How many verses are in this chapter?
Huh?
You said you wanted to read every single verse.
Yes.
Well, we're not gonna go over all of it.
Okay.
No way. I said until we have just time.
18.
So guys, I want you to pay attention to this. Look, this is the book of Daniel. Okay, look at verse 3 and 4. And 4 great beasts. By the way, this is in his vision. This is in Daniel's vision. He says, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first is like a lion, had the eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off. And it lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 1 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Okay? And then there was another beast, like a bear. So there's very similar things here from the vision that Daniel saw. Okay? So let's go back to Revelations. Okay, and here this is similar creature to what Daniel saw in his vision. Okay, so some people say that those 7 horns are like world empires, big places that are basically gonna get taken by the Antichrist, or different countries that start fighting, basically continents that will start fighting against Christianity, and they're basically gonna get taken by the Antichrist. And then he even mentions that he fights the church for 42 months. We're going to see that here. 42 months. And those are going to be the most painful times for any Christian or any person that wants to go to heaven. That's when God lets basically the devil do whatever he wants. Those 42 months. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit, if we have time. So he explains this Antichrist as a beast or as an animal. Okay? Because why does he call him an animal? Because he doesn't really deserve a good description. Like for others, he calls them something else, but he never calls them an animal or a beast. Okay? And again, 7 could refer to the strength in his ways, so that the Antichrist. Imagine the devil doesn't have one head, because if he has one head, we can cut it off and be done. But he has multiple ways to tempt you. He can tempt you in one way one day, and the next day he tempts you another way, and then it's a never-ending cycle. So it shows you that he is very capable. He can do a lot of things with the different heads, which means he has different thoughts. Okay? They can come in so many ways, different temptations, as we said. And then there's the 10 horns or the 10 crowns, and again that refers to all the kingdoms that could be around. And then the crown that goes on the horns are basically that they're gonna take over, right? They're gonna take over whatever those 10 places are, okay? And then it goes, at the end it says, on his head a blasphemous name. So the easiest way to find this Antichrist is basically to see the blasphemous name, okay? It's gonna be the obvious thing, the blasphemous name. Is everything okay?
I think there's a kid screaming.
What is going on, man?
Oh, I can't hear
I
anything.
did not hear anything either.
I can't hear myself.
Someone got hurt, man.
Some kid is like dying.
Okay, so it's basically saying that someone here is going to be talking bad about Christ. They're going to be blaspheming against Christ. Okay? Okay, verse 2. Can someone read verse 2? Go ahead, Mark.
Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth was like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and his great authority.
Perfect. Huh. Anyone else wants to share anything? Should I keep going?
Keep going.
Keep going.
Okay, so the beast here, he says it's like a leopard. He mentions leopard, bear, and lion. So he's trying to explain what he's seeing, but he's seeing so many things that he's having a hard time how to explain it to us. Okay, so what do we know about leopards? Leopards are fast. Okay, so he's trying to say that this creature, this beast, is really fast. At least that's what we can understand. Okay, he's saying that it's like a bear. So a bear, we know that a bear is really the feet of, he's saying it has a feet like the feet of a bear. We know that a feet or the bear is really heavy, it's really hard to move. That means that he looks undefeated. Someone that's really strong. The mouth of a lion. So St. Peter talks in his first letter, as we talked about last week, where he says, your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. So he's trying to explain here that that beast is also like the mouth of a lion. So the mouth of a lion here, also St. Paul mentions it. He says, and I was delivered, in 2 Timothy, he says, I was delivered from the lion's mouth. So the lion's mouth here, basically imagine it's an animal that doesn't get full. It's always hungry. So it's trying to get to devour whatever it can. So it keeps going after all of us. It's always hungry for more. Okay? Okay, I'm trying to not go into too much detail so we can keep reading as much as we can. Who can read verse 3? Please, go ahead, Kiro.
And I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world marveled and followed the beast.
Very nice. Okay, so here, the key word, because a lot of people will get this confused. It says, as if. Okay? Watch this. He says, and I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded. This is the key message here. As if it was mortally wounded. Who was mortally wounded?
Christ.
Christ. So he's acting as if he was. Do you get it? It's as if he was mortally wounded, and his deadly wounds are healed. So basically, he's saying that it's as if he had those wounds and those deadly wounds are healed. So this is someone, this Antichrist is gonna come and he's gonna basically do all kinds of miracles. He's gonna almost replicate a lot of the things that Christ did, but it's gonna be as if he died. Okay, this is the key, because a lot of people, there's people that started saying, well, Christ was deadly, he was wounded, he was mortally wounded, and then his deadly wounds were healed. But the key difference between Christ and this Antichrist is that it says, I saw one of his heads as if it had been mortally wounded, which means it was not actually mortally wounded. Okay, it's an act. You guys with me? So this is basically the devil deceiving people. Yes.
Okay, this just because you said he would come and do miracles, just
Yes.
like Christ would. How would an ordinary person be able to tell that these miracles are not from God?
This is we can talk about this for hours.
He who has ears to hear.
Yeah, and it's really, imagine this, if you, if you hear your dad from upstairs and you can't see him and you can't like, and there's all these people that are talking around you, can you identify his voice?
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. The more you get to know God, the more you get close to him, you're going to be able to see who's coming at you and if it's Christ or Antichrist. This is the scary thing, is that this is going to be someone that's going to do almost everything. He's going to perform miracles. He's going to deceive people. He's going to fool everybody with everything, basically to the point with what he does, to the level that you're going to see here later on. But St. Paul mentions this. He says that the coming of the lawless one will be in accordance with how Satan works. He will use all sorts of display of power through signs and wonders that serve as a lie. Okay? And that's, if you read the rest of it, and all the world marveled and followed the beast. This is the scary part. That the people, it's really scary to be alive in that time. That when that beast is let loose. Okay? So all follow the beast. So here, the saints themselves will become a minority. The saints will become a minority. They'll become really weak. They will be rejected completely from the world. Like they're gonna be a very small number. And if we read on verse 4, we're gonna get into a little bit more. Can someone read that from the table in the back, please? Verse 4.
Can you zoom in?
كل شوية zoom in. What verse were we on?
4.
We kind of gotta get moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
يلا.
Done.
2
They
minutes, yellow.
worship the dragon who gave authority to the beast, and they worship the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him?"
Okay. Anything?
Just go. Just go.
Okay. The Antichrist here worships the dragon. Okay? So it says, they worship the dragon, they, as in the beast, who give authority to the beast, and they worship the beast. So the beast started worshiping the dragon, and the people worship the beast. And they're saying, who is like the beast? Who is able to make war with him? Do you guys remember this? Anywhere else? In Tasbihah, we say something very similar.
Who is like you, O Lord, among
Who is
the
like
gods?
you, Lord, among the gods? Glorified in his saints, right? You guys remember that? They're saying this about the beast. They're saying, who is like the beast? This is really scary, guys. This is really
It
like,
sounds-
this is
I
terrifying.
don't like saying it, but almost
Who
sounds
is
like
able to make war
it
with
sounds
him?
like exactly like something where it would be like the dragon, like the father, and then the beast came down. and,
Yeah,
like right.
Heretic Mark.
That's so. That's so scary.
prophet.
Like,
Antichrist, no, I'm just kidding.
no, actually, like that's so scary. Like that sounds
Yes.
exactly like what
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
doing, and we
yeah,
worship and say, "Who's
Yeah.
like the beast?"
That's the whole point.
Like,
That's exactly the whole point.
that's actually so scary.
Is the people start worshiping the beast,
Don't worry, man.
who worships the dragon, and then they start saying all this, who is like you among the Lord, who is like you among the gods, who is glorified in his saints, amazing
There's actually
in glory, amazing in wonders. Okay, guys,
Yes.
five more minutes.
And the dragon?
Can we get back into it? I need 5 more minutes.
And the false prophet is like it's like a trinity of the devil. You know?
Okay.
Trying to like model
Right, like,
God.
that's so scary.
It's horrible.
Guys, I just want to finish until verse 10, so can we just do 5 or 10 more minutes, please? Someone read verse 5. Anyone?
And he was
Go ahead,
given a
Larry.
mouth.
And he was given a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and he was given authority to continue for 42 months.
Okay, again, this is extremely scary, guys. He blasphemes and he's given authority. So when we say that he's given authority, again, this is a permission from God. This is something that was permitted to him from God, yes.
Why would God do that? It's like to test us to see if we really want.
God doesn't test us. God allows us to be tested. Sorry.
Why would God
God doesn't, just like Job, the book of Job, if you read it, it answers that question. He allows for tests, and when it comes to this time in those 42 months, which is technically 3.5 years, but again, the time with God is different, he's gonna go all out. The devil's gonna go all out. Like, you're gonna read where he says that he's gonna unbuckle his chains, okay? So a lot of people will say, why is God allowing this to happen? Again, kind of like exactly that. Okay, let's read verse 6. Someone, anybody.
Then he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name, his tabernacle, and those who dwell in heaven.
Okay, this shows you that when someone blasphemies against God, they blaspheme against his name, his tabernacles, which is the church. So they're having doubts about the church, the sacraments, the history, the priesthood, and then those who dwell in heaven. So those that dwell in heaven are basically like the saints. So we're saying there's no intercessions or anything like that. Let's go to verse 7. Someone read verse 7.
It was granted to him to make war with the saints and overcome them, and authority was given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation.
Okay, so this, once he starts warring against, this is at the point where he starts going into war against the saints, and God lets him loose, and it gets very dangerous. Okay, he lets him loose to the point. If you read in chapter 11, here I'm just gonna go really quick, but there's two witnesses. These two witnesses, they're basically like prophets. If you guys read about it, I'm not gonna go
like
in that
Old
piece.
Testament prophets.
Huh?
They're like Old Testament.
They were two witnesses, they're prophets who God sent, and the Antichrist kills them. Okay? And then he gives them a little bit of time,
And they resurrect.
and then they resurrect. Okay? But for a period of time, they appear to be defeated. So there's a time, basically, God will allow for the church to look as if it lost, and will allow as if saints look like they lost. Okay? But after he comes and then he shows that these are people that resurrected, and the church, and then it says here that he has authority. Where is it?
You go down. Scroll
Says
down.
verse 6.
He overcomes them.
Sorry, verse 7.
And authority was given given him over every tribe, tongue, and nation. So this is, again, this is just really, really scary time, guys, to be living in. And then if you go to verse 8, it says, all who dwell on the earth will worship him. You see this? But you need to finish the sentence. Pay attention. It says, all who dwell on the earth will worship him. A lot of people stop there. And then you have now all these satanic temples, because they stop there with this verse. All who dwell on the earth will worship him. And this is how you start seeing a lot of the satanic temples. But they don't finish the verse. It says, whose name have not been written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. A lot of people misunderstand this verse and take it for what they want it and do whatever they want for it. So this one is telling you that there's a book of life. Imagine it like the Hall of Fame. It has a name, a bunch of names, and all these names are the ones that are making it to heaven. And God knows who it is now. He knows it from thousands of years ago.
From the foundation of the world.
From the foundation of the world. Right? And that's the key word, is from the foundation of the world. You're getting ahead of me. But you're good. So basically, what it's saying here, I'm مش عارف اتكلم when you guys are talking. What it's saying here, a lot of people will say, so do I not have a chance in heaven? Am I not going to go to heaven? And then they start talking about predestination. And they're like, okay, well, God already knows where I'm going. I'm probably going to go to hell anyways. I'm done. And that's what people say. I'm serious.
No, it's true.
I'm serious. A lot of people say that. But this is the piece that people don't understand. God's time, as I told you, he told John, write what it was, what it is, and what it will be. So he sees everything, the past, present, and future in front of him. There is no time limit. For us, we see time as a factor. But for him, he knows what's going to happen. He knows that someone might start out their life bad as a sinner, but then they eventually, even if it's last minute, they will turn and they will become Christian, and their name is in that Hall of Fame, or in that book of life. Sorry. From the foundation of the world. Okay? Okay, and then it goes, he who has an ear, let him hear. The reason why, I'm going to stop here after this verse, and I'm not going to sing it, but this is repeated so many times in the book of Revelations, because there will come a time when the Antichrist is so deceiving to the point that people will not be able to hear the word of God. So we keep saying, who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says unto the churches. And glory be to God forever. Okay, thank you guys. Next week we have an exam that starts at 8 p.m.